So, a very good morning to everyone that's joining us today. My name is Margaret Pang, and I will be moderating today's webinar, Where Are They Now? On behalf of GE and the EDT, we are delighted to welcome you to this session, which is one of 3 that we're running to mark the Girls Get Set's 10th birthday milestone. Now, a little introduction to myself. I'm an engineering degree apprentice at GE Aviation, about to graduate this August after 5 years. And as an apprentice, I volunteer for some of our STEM outreach programs, including Girls Get Set, which I took part in myself when I was in school. And now I lead the Girls Get Set program nationally across our different sites all over the UK. All of us here today would like to wish you a very happy International Women in Engineering Day. My personal engineering heroes are Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, 3 African-American female pioneers who are part of NASA's team of human computers that calculated by hand the complex equations that allowed space heroes like Neil Armstrong and Alan Shepard to travel to space safely. Now, we'd love for today's session to be as interactive as possible, so please make use of the Q&A function, clicking on the small speech bubble to ask our panelists any questions that you have. Now, I'm going to pass over to Mara-Lisa to tell us a bit more about GE.
Thank you so much, Margaret. So hello, everyone. My name is Mara-Lisa Vega, and I co-lead GE's Community Investment Program here in the UK and Ireland. And so before we delve into the main content of today's session, we wanted to spend a few minutes introducing you to why GE chose to run a program like Girls Get Set, and how the program works. So GE is truly a global technology company. We operate in more than 180 countries across the world. And we were founded by an inventor you might have heard of, Thomas Edison, 130 years ago. And innovation has remained at the heart of the company ever since. However, if GE is to stay successful, we need to make sure we attract people with excellent STEM skills who can be the Thomas Edisons of the future in all the different fields and industries we operate in. So 10 years ago, we decided that we wanted to work with a diverse mix of young people and schools to help tackle any misperceptions about who can work in STEM. So with that, I'm going to hand back over to you, Margaret.
Thanks, Mara-Lisa. So, the Girls Get Set program that we're celebrating here today was started by 2 female engineers, Kim and Sophie. They loved their jobs and wanted to give more girls the chance to develop a passion for STEM by offering mentoring and dynamic hands-on projects throughout the school year. One thing that we are most proud of at GE is seeing Girls Get Set alumni joining our teams. In this picture, you can see Jess, Charlotte, Abby, myself, and Fleur. We all took part in Girls Get Set and now work for GE Aviation as apprentices. On the panel today, we also have with us Alice, who is studying automotive engineering at Sheffield Hallam, and she also took part in Girls Get Set at the same time that I did. So I'd now like to introduce to you our panel. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. And I can't wait to hear your stories about your Girls Get Set experience. So I will start by chatting to each of you guys for about 5 minutes before moving on to a general Q&A. So if any of you in the audience have any questions at any point, please do put them in the Q&A chat, and then we'll ask our panelists those questions. So first up, let's start with Jess. Jess, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so hi, I'm Jess. when I was in school, I studied maths, physics and computing. So I've always kind of had a keen interest in STEM. And this kind of led me to join the apprenticeship after completing Girls Get Set and learning about what the apprenticeship has to offer. And now I'm in a hardware rotation, really loving it. I'm only in my second year, so I've not had too much experience, but I'm really keen for the next 3 years. And I'm really enjoying it.
What's your favourite thing about doing your hardware rotation you're doing at the moment?
It's really hands-on. I get to come to site every day and work with other engineers, go into the lab, see tests being done, and it's always something new.
Mm-hmm. And hardware is something new that you've picked up after school, isn't it?
Yeah, so in school I was definitely more into software engineering, definitely into coding. And it was something actually from Girls Get Set that I learned about hardware and learned about what it has to offer, and something I picked up, and it's why I came to GE, because you get to try out all the different things, software and hardware integration. And it's something that I didn't think I would enjoy as much, but now coming into it, I enjoy it, equally as much as I love software.
Mm-hmm. And as part of your apprenticeship, you have an academic side to it as well, don't you?
Yes, yeah. So 1 day a week we go to uni, studying electrical and computer engineering. In the first year, we also did kind of a PEO, which is a kind of practical hardware course. So you get taught everything really.
Mm-hmm. What made you made the decision to do an apprenticeship over going to university then when you left school?
I think for me, I'm much more of a hands-on person. I learn better from seeing things done and practicing it. But the actual opportunity of having 5 years worth of experience when I come at the end is a lot more valuable than just going to uni, getting a degree and then coming out with no experience. It's also for me a lot more interesting. I get to come to work, get paid, get the experience, get to work with other people, get inspired by so many older engineers that have had 40 plus years of experience, and listening to them and working with them is just so valuable.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So you took part in Girls Get Set in school. What kind of skills did you pick up whilst in Girls Get Set that you now use in your job?
So one of the biggest things is probably learning about the project life cycle. I guess the basic understanding that we were taught, because we obviously didn't go into the whole amount of detail that it actually is, but we got such a good basic understanding that when I came to GE, came to do my apprenticeship, I had the basic knowledge that I needed to pick it up, and also kind of with that communication skills. We learned, we had a few presentations when I was doing Girls Get Set, which helped me kind of pick up the confidence that I needed to come into the business and then present to my managers and present to my colleagues. So yeah, there's so much. I learned so much in Girls Get Set that I actually do use in my job.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that with us, Jess.
Thank you.
Let's move on to Abby. Abby, do you want to tell us a bit about what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Abby. I'm not on the engineering degree apprenticeship. I'm actually doing the higher business apprenticeship at GE. So for A levels, I took English, literature and language, business studies and film studies. In my current rotation, I have to solve material issues on the shop floor, so where all the engineers work. Yeah, so for the HBA scheme, it's almost the same as the engineering one. We do 1 day a week at uni, but we're more going towards a degree in business leadership and management.
And I have to ask, what was it like studying for a A-level in film? What is that?
Yeah, so for me, I always considered film studies a little bit more like English, because it's all about analysing what you're seeing, but instead of reading a book or something, you're watching a film and you're saying, oh yeah, like they use this colour to get this feeling, as the same as you would do. They use this emotional lexis to create this feeling for the reader. The only difference is for film studies, you got to create your own little film as your project.
Nice. So instead of reading Romeo and Juliet in class, you were watching movies instead then?
Exactly, yes.
Nice. So back to your business apprenticeship then. What's it like working for a company like GE that does a lot of engineering, but obviously has a business side as well?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a lot like Jess as well. I'm quite hands-on, but I wanted to take the business route. So I feel quite fortunate that I've managed to go into business and just so happen to be in a STEM industry. For me, like you talking about Girls Get Set, Girls Get Set kind of gave you like the basic knowledge that I use, I mean, every day. If I'm presenting something, I'm presenting something around engineering. So yeah, I think the two go together really well.
Nice. And you took part in Girls Get Set, and you obviously learned a lot of skills that you are now using in industry. Did Girls Get Set also change any of your views about STEM careers and different paths into STEM as well, even though you didn't end up working in STEM now?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, Girls Get Set obviously gives you an overview of GE Aviation. The actual people who run it were mostly apprentices. So like I got a lot of knowledge about apprenticeships and stuff. I never wanted to go to uni. It didn't seem like my thing. And now I've got the best of both worlds from being at uni and then also getting that experience, like Jess was saying. I think it's invaluable, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Abby, for sharing that with us. Again, to everyone that's watching, if you do have any questions at any point for anyone that's spoken, please do drop them in the Q&A chat. So let's now speak to Fleur. Fleur, tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment.
Hey, so at the moment I'm also, along with Jess, doing the engineering degree apprenticeship program and also working in a hardware rotation, but mainly in the electronics side of things. So I'm doing a lot of understanding some of the power distribution on aircraft, which I find is very interesting. It's something that you almost take for granted when you go on holiday. You think, okay, this is flying, that's okay. And you kind of forget that they're not wired up to anything. They have to generate it themselves and they've got to power everything individually, and understanding what each of those components do and the priorities of it as well.
Nice. And on the apprenticeship, you do different rotations, I understand, in different areas. So what kind of rotations have you gotten up to?
So I've done quite a few rotations now. So I've done ones in hardware, software systems, which are kind of like the core rotations for the engineering degree apprenticeship program. But I've also done manufacturing and one in through life engineering, which are more the off-core ones. But having done those different rotations has been able to give me a bit of perspective. So it's quite easy for the engineers to be able to almost forget about the rest of the process and kind of think, oh, well, this is only my job. This is the only bit that I need to focus on, without actually giving other people a thought of, okay, what's the rest of this process that's happening? And with my manufacturing one, it's been a lot of building and understanding the difficulties with building the components and parts that we actually have designed on site.
That sounds like a lot of different types of engineering that you've tried.
Yeah, and it's with that, it's been able for me to understand what areas that I enjoy. I think that's one thing that I didn't, one of the reasons why I wasn't sure about going to university, because it's so easy at university to be able to do a broad engineering course, but by the end of it, you're not entirely sure what that might look like. You might have been able to do a year out in industry, but with that year out, you only are able to see one area of such a wide spectrum. So even just for GE Aviation, we're only looking at aviation products, and only a small amount of them in reality, but you're able to still be able to experience so many different parts of engineering, like we say, the hardware, the software, the systems. And for example, test equipment, I know there's quite a few people that have done rotations in that, and understanding the importance of keeping products safe and doing the upkeep of them. So there's still so many different areas that even I've not been into and I'm still yet to explore.
Mm-hmm. Have there been any rotations so far that you've maybe not quite enjoyed as much or didn't like?
I think for me, I know I'm not very software savvy, and that's just something that I've always known, but it was probably the one that I enjoyed least, but I still enjoyed it. It's just because I knew that it was an area that I wasn't going to go down. It was never my intention to do software. But I still was able to get a lot of valuable knowledge from that, and also an appreciation of how difficult hardware engineers can sometimes make it for software engineers. So I think it's allowed me to feel for them a little bit more, and hoping that I would be able to almost use that knowledge to make things a little bit easier for them and work as a wider team together in future, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's great to hear that even though you didn't maybe quite enjoy software as much, that it was useful to help develop you as a really well-rounded engineer.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things on the apprenticeship programme.
Awesome. So what, going a bit further back to when you were in school, what A-levels was it that you took?
So originally I took maths, physics, chemistry and biology with the intention to go into veterinary sciences. But one of my biology teachers and I just completely clashed heads. We didn't get along, which made biology quite a challenging subject for me to actually enjoy, despite loving it at GCSEs. So I ended up dropping biology and taking up further maths instead, my very first year of completing A-levels. So with that in mind, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I can't go into veterinary sciences without biology, in which fortunately I did the Girls Get Set programme, and I was like, oh, engineering is quite cool. I'll have a look at that a little bit more, and decided to do a couple of Head Start courses and work experience both at GE and Renishaw, and loved it, which kind of confirmed my choice of going into engineering.
Nice. So what kind of advice would you have for a student that might experience something similar, studying a A-level subject that they might not enjoy, maybe with the teacher they might not get on with?
I think you've always got to think what's best for yourself. And for me, it was a case of I really did not get along with that teacher, so I did have to change. And that was my decision, and I don't think I'd do it any differently now, because it's got me to where I am. And it's never the wrong thing to do. It will just put you on a different path, and one that you might not have expected. And I think deep down, everyone really knows what's best for them, even though it might be a bit of a daunting change or situation to be dealing with at that time. You've really got to do what's best for you. And for me now, I didn't think I'd ever almost be in engineering. Like looking back in when I was doing my GCSEs, I never considered engineering as an option. I always loved playing around, pulling things apart and trying to fix them and put them back together, but I never considered engineering as an option. So I think without me dropping the biology, I never would have thought about it in the first place. So you've got to do what's best for you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Fleur. Before we move on to the next person, Roz, do we have any questions come up in the chat?
Yes, we're getting some great questions coming through, so thanks for that and keep them coming. We've actually had a question about, can we explain what GE is, Margaret? So I just wondered if you could just do that for a minute or two, and then we've got a couple of other questions as well.
Yeah, of course. So GE stands for General Electric. It's a company that has many different businesses, including aviation, which is the one a lot of the apprentices are on here today. But they also have businesses in healthcare, in renewable energy, in power. We do a lot of engineering, lots of different types of engineering as well. And as a company, we are our headquarters are based in the US, but we have sites all across the world. Even in the UK, we have sites in Wales, in Cardiff, all the way up north to Caledonia and Prestwick, as well as us in Cheltenham, in London, all sorts of everywhere. So that's a very quick, brief overview of who GE are.
Great. Do you want another question, Margaret?
Yes, please.
So it says, you are all working in different businesses and roles. How much are you learning about other industry sectors and jobs?
Great question. Jess, can I give you this question?
Yes. So I think for me, and I don't know if anyone else can kind of say anything different, I think I'm learning quite a lot, and it's not necessarily an obvious kind of learning point. It's not, we're not sat down and given this information, but you kind of pick it up as you go along, whether it's through your own research or through just reading communications emails. I think, you know, if you're willing to learn and willing to kind of pick things up, then you know, it comes across, and I find it quite interesting to learn about in different sectors and stuff. So it's something that interests me, and something I kind of work to learn more about.
Thanks, Jess. Ros, let's have one more question before we move on.
Okay, so another great question. What has surprised you most about the education and career paths you have chosen?
That's another great question. Abby, can I pass this one over on to you?
You can. So for me, I did film studies. I wanted to go into media, and since GCSE, I was firm set, yeah, I'll go for an apprenticeship at the BBC or ITV and places like that. And I was in the year where unfortunately COVID meant that I didn't do my A-levels, so positives, negatives, but it was very much cut, and I still had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. And I was too shy to say to a teacher, look, I have no idea, like everyone's going off to uni and I have absolutely no idea. It was only after a while where I started thinking, well, actually, I enjoyed business. It was a subject I just did because I knew I was good at it. But actually, the more I thought about it, actually, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the tasks we were given. And obviously, I looked on GE's website because Charlotte, who's also on this call, is my sister, and she does the EDA one. And I knew that she had a good apprenticeship. And I was like, well, they do a business one. Let's have a read. Let's apply and see what happens. And after I got offered it, I was like, oh no, like, what if it's completely not what I wanted? And like, I'll just try it out, and I'll probably leave and whatever. And I started joining it, and I speak for myself, but at GE there's such a good community as well, that when I joined it, all of the people above me were so lovely, where I was like, actually, this is where I want to be. So, I mean, if you told myself back in GCSE that I'd be doing a business apprenticeship, she would definitely be shocked. But I'm just really happy with where I am at the moment.
Thank you very much, Abby. So let's move on to talking with Alice then. Alice, do you want to tell us a bit about what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, my day is quite different to everybody else that's on this call. So I came from A-levels. I actually went to school with Margaret, and I did physics, maths, product design, and I did an AS in economics, as well as like an extended project in jet engines and how they affected the war. So I knew I was interested in engineering, and I'd grown up with granddads who were both engineers, and it was very much something that just sort of happened in the background. And I never thought, oh, I can't do that, I'm a girl. I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go in. I couldn't decide between planes, trains, cars, or electronics. I liked everything. I just sort of liked mucking in and working out how things worked. So I thought university would probably be the best option for me, because I would be constantly learning, and in lots of different areas. I've done some very random modules in my time, and actually the more random they've got, the more I've enjoyed them. So I actually came to university through clearing. My A-levels weren't the results I wanted or needed, so I ended up at Sheffield Hallam, and I've absolutely loved it. I've just finished my 5 years up here now, and I'm now sort of in the market for a graduate role. So I Yeah, I've been up here 5 years now. I've done a variety of things in my Masters in Engineering. I've done a placement year at Rolls-Royce where I worked in technical drawing, producing sort of big 80-page drawings for combustors, and I got to work with a whole variety of people, just grilled them every chance I got on. What do you do day to day? And oh, is that what I want to do? So I haven't had rotations in the same way that degree apprentices have, but I am very question-minded. I will just ask questions if it pops into my mind. So I'm always asking people what they're up to. So I did that a couple of years ago, and now I've always been a part of Formula Student at university, which is a project where we design and build a single-seater race car from scratch. And I've worked my way up from sort of just making little bits and designing steering wheels to now I manage the driver's environment department, and I'm currently also the team principal. So I actually run the team day to day, and there's 70 people that are sort of part of it. So we're off to Silverstone, COVID permitting, in 4 weeks, and really looking forward to it, to racing against other universities and seeing how we stack up.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Being able to build a car and race against other universities and have it actually working, because if I built a car, it certainly wouldn't move. So Alice, can you tell us a bit about what it's like being a female studying engineering at university?
Of course. It's a strange one. I am the only girl on my course, but there's never been more than 30 of us, so sort of as a 1 in 30, it's not that uncommon. But I've been pleasantly surprised in the 5 years that when I look now, if there's a group of 30, there might be 3 or 4 women in that group. So in the last 5 years alone, it's really changed. I've never found that as a woman at university, I'm actually singled out. People don't sort of pick on me because I'm a girl. They're almost more like, oh, it's just one of us. The boys have always been very good. They just sort of get on with it. They don't mind that I'm sat next to them. I think as a girl in engineering, and I think it's good they've realised it now, we bring something a bit different to the world, and it's not a problem, and people need to be prepared to just sort of embrace that and kind of go with it. So I'm no different from them. I've worked just as hard, if not harder, to get where I am, but I bring a different set of skills because of my gender, and I think it's a good thing that they're there.
Yeah, of course. And you're graduating this year. Do you have a job or a role lined up, or something that you really want to get into come the end of your university experience?
I would love to say yes, I have a job lined up. COVID has made it really quite difficult for the graduate market. That is the only downside of doing what I've done, though in fairness, most of my friends do have roles, but I've had to put it on the back burner. In an ideal world, I'd love to go into design engineering. I'd quite like to do a few years in design and sort of start working on new ideas and projects. I'd love to go back into aerospace. I love the aerospace sector, and I like all the legislation that goes with it, which I know is a very strange thing to say, but I like having my set of rules and finding ways around them. So that's kind of where I see myself short term. Long term, I'd really like to go chartered. That's always been my sort of end goal. I want to be a chartered engineer, and I'd like to move into project management. So because I've been team principal, I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed sort of having a foot in every pond, as it kind of is the best way to explain it. And I like sort of having that overview of everybody instead of my own technical thing. I think it sits better with my skills.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Alice. Roz, I believe we have a few questions coming up. What's next?
We do. We've got the questions coming thick and fast, which is fantastic. Endon High School and the Wesley School have both asked some questions about money. Endon High School say, what is the average salary for engineering? And what the Wesley School says, how much can you earn on an apprenticeship, and what's your earning potential in the future?
question that we get asked most often, I think. Fleur, would you be able to answer this for us?
Yeah, so on the apprenticeship programme, it is, well, I can only speak for the degree apprenticeship, but it is a very competitive salary. You start off, well, when I started, it was 17.5. I think that's changed now, maybe slightly a little bit more with times, but every year it increases, and it is a very competitive salary. I can't speak about other engineering programs or other apprenticeships. You'd have to ask those. But as a starting off engineer, you can look at getting anywhere between like 25, 30,000. And once you've qualified, you've got loads of industry experience. The sky's the limit in some areas, like software. You can get quite a lot, which I probably kick myself about because I'm not very software savvy. But it really does depend, and it also depends on the industry. So I know like aviation is usually quite a bit, but it is something that you can always Google, and it's something that if you have a look on like some of the like Indeed.com or have a look at jobs, a lot of them will have a look at the salaries as well. So a lot of places are quite honest with it.
Thanks, Fleur. Bros, do we have another question?
Yeah, there was a question about, again, from Endon High School, what are the different branches of engineering that you can go into?
Great question. Jess, can I give this one to you?
Yeah, so there's so many different branches. I'm only in my second rotation, second year of the apprenticeship, and I've done software and hardware so far. But as Fleur mentioned earlier, there's test equipment. You can go into research, you can go into integration, testing. There's so many. I don't know if any of the older apprentices want to add some more into that.
I can definitely add from myself that you've done kind of manufacturing engineering, you then go into systems engineering, you look at both sides of the V life cycle, and you can try just about anything, because with the production of a product, you've obviously got to make all the hardware side of it, all the software side of it, putting it all together, designing the electronics, testing it, making sure that it's created as efficiently as possible. There's a bit of everything there. Definitely. So let's speak to Charlotte now before we come back to the questions. Charlotte, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you're doing at the moment?
So yeah, hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm a fourth year engineering degree apprentice. I'm currently on my last rotation before my yearly rotation, where I'll be doing my dissertation and I'll be doing a final year project. I'm currently working in hardware verification, which is where you verify requirements have been met. I studied maths, physics, design technology, 3D product design, and ICT as an AS level as well.
Awesome. So can you tell me the benefits of doing an apprenticeship over going to university?
I'd definitely say the benefits of going to apprenticeship is the fact that you can progress along with other people. So in university, you have to make new friends and you have to kind of figure out where you're going or what you're doing in life. Whereas when you're part of apprenticeship, you do this as a massive group together. And it means that if, say, someone's struggling, you can help them out and you can build your skills together. I think definitely a difference from school is where you're in school and you're doing GCSEs, it's very much your degree and you have to focus on yourself. Whereas when you go to an apprenticeship, it's very much a kind of team bonding, and you'll see that a lot in engineering, that it's more about teamwork rather than just what an individual gets, which I think is very important.
And there's also a financial benefit as well to doing an apprenticeship, right?
Yeah, definitely. I know that normally when you go to university, you'll have a lot of debt as you pay for it, whereas in an apprenticeship, the G kind of invests in you rather than seeing it as kind of a payment to pay for these people going to university. They'll see it as an investment, so they'll hopefully get some qualified engineers at the end. So you don't have to pay any of the uni fees yourself. They're more kind of looking for you to develop yourself as an engineer.
Nice. And so obviously as one of our Girls Get Set alumni, can you tell us a bit about what skills you learned whilst doing Girls Get Set that you now use in your job?
So I definitely learned a lot of soft skills. So I did Robot Olympics, where we had to design and build our own robot. We then had to pitch it for Dragon's Den, which was quite fun to do. So pitching to large crowds is not something I normally do. If any of my school teachers saw me now, they'd probably be shocked I'm actually here and talking. So definitely the soft skills I've learned to how to present to big crowds is something I'd never normally do. But Girls Get Set's helped me develop them. I know lots of people have also done these kind of Dragon's Den type pitches, and they're really valuable, especially if pitching something you know hasn't quite met the aim. That's really hard to do. And although you're disappointed, it's more about how you present that across to people rather than the final project.
Nice. And did Girls Get Set change your views on STEM careers at all, or have an effect or impact on what you decided to do after school?
Definitely. So I think going to all these STEM workshops and doing all these different ideas was really beneficial, because I didn't know that there could be different engineering types all over the company. So I know there's been some questions about any kind of medical stuff we do. We've worked on, due to COVID, the little monitors that help people in hospitals. We've helped design and engineer some of them. We've also branched out into many different fields, and there's also lots more kind of different routes into engineering that I didn't know about through STEM. So obviously my sister's on the call as well, and she does business, and I wouldn't have known how that integrated into engineering without going through STEM different ideas as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Charlotte. So Ros, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, as Charlotte just mentioned, we've had a couple of healthcare related questions. One is whether we have any medical related schemes available at GE, and also another question about what sort of engineering roles can you do in a hospital setting. So some good questions there for you, Margaret.
Yeah, some great questions indeed. Charlotte, do you think you'd be able to expand on what you said earlier and answer those questions?
Sure, love to. So there aren't really any schemes at the moment that incorporate medical degrees. However, there is something called the Edison scheme. So anything related to engineering or takes maths or STEM type qualifications into account, you can then use your degree and apply for the Edison scheme, which is like an apprenticeship, but after you've done your degree with your university. So that's also another route into getting qualified. I think you get some leadership qualifications from doing the Edison scheme as well. As for different type of engineering jobs in hospitals, obviously there's technicians that help with the equipment and all the testing as well. I'm not too familiar with jobs in hospitals, but I know there's definitely some people who design the machines, because everything you see in a hospital has to be going through an engineering process to get approved to be used on people. So definitely there's some jobs there. I'm not sure if anyone else knows any more than I do on this, but it's definitely a lot varied stuff that follows the engineering process as well.
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. Our healthcare business at GE do work on a lot of medical equipment as well, and some of their sites might do apprenticeships as well, but they work on like MRI machines and all sorts of stuff that you can see in hospitals. So our healthcare business do cover medical related engineering designs. Ros, do we have other questions?
Yeah, we have another question from Endon High School about whether plumbing comes under engineering. Quite a specific question.
So, that's a good question. Alice, would you be able to answer this question for us?
Yes, it's a funny one. it's not something you would necessarily do an engineering degree in to become a plumber. You would be more likely to go and do an apprenticeship in plumbing, and then you sometimes they can then have a job title of plumbing engineer, but I wouldn't suggest that doing something like a mechanical engineering degree would lead to being a plumber. But equally, as I haven't done it, I couldn't say for definite.
Thanks, Alice. Bros, do we have another question?
Yes, so we've got a slightly different question now from Weaverham High School. I like this one. It's about your influences. Did anyone influence you to become the role that you are in? I guess that means, did anyone influence you to take on the role that you chose to do today?
Question. Fleur, can I go to you first?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say specifically there would be anyone as an individual who kind of influenced me. I guess I could say my biology teacher, because I wouldn't be here without her. But I think throughout the engineering program and also being part of Girls Get Set, it allowed me to see some fantastic female engineers and be able to have conversations with them. One memory that really stands out to me is I came to the Cheltenham site for like a bit of a careers event sort of day, where we were able to chat to female engineers and they did some presentations, and we had a hardware manager who has sadly left now, but she was amazing. And some of the experiences and just kind of being able to chat to her and be open and honest and kind of get a bit of information from her of what it's like being in industry, that would for me definitely be invaluable. And a couple of the previous apprentices and Edison female engineers that were able to kind of give a voice of both going to university and being part of an apprenticeship. I wouldn't say personally for me there was an individual influence. I think everything just kind of came together and in a sense made sense for me to go into engineering, and kind of having a look at the interests that I like, it just kind of fit in a weird jigsaw puzzle piece.
Thanks, Fleur. Alice, can I also ask you the same question? What influenced you to where you are now?
Of course. I would say my granddad's had quite a lot to do with it, and sort of the projects they've been up to. We spent a lot of time playing around with cars when I was little, so that was quite a big influence for why I went to uni. But with the team principal role, I didn't think I was good enough for it. I really wasn't very sure of myself. But it was around the time Claire Williams, the former deputy team principal at Williams F1, was in charge, or was running the show at the time, and I was watching F1 and I was thinking, this woman is amazing. I want to be her. And then kind of I was asked if I wanted to apply for team principal, and I was lucky enough to get it. And there's a lot of what she's done day to day that I've really tried to channel into the way I go about running the team. So for me, that was a big push in the right direction that I don't think I otherwise would have taken if I hadn't sort of been seeing what she gets up to day on F1 and on the TV.
Awesome, thanks, Alice. Ros, let's have one more question.
I've got a good one for you, Margaret. What advice would you give us as students now to help us reach where you are today?
Great question, definitely. Jess, can I go to you first?
Yeah, sure. So I think my biggest piece of advice is to just go into everything open-minded. You never know. I think I went into hardware thinking I was gonna not enjoy it so much, but I ended up loving it. And it's been that throughout my career, throughout school. As long as you go into it thinking, you know what, I might enjoy this, you'll open up your mind to enjoy it, and you'll let yourself enjoy it. And just look around for so many different opportunities. Don't just go for what your school tells you to do. Look around, research go to open days, go to induction days, go to everything you can to get a good understanding of what a company or a school or a university is going to offer you, and get as much information that you can to know that you're going to enjoy the rest of, you know, the rest of your career and rest of your life.
Thanks, Jess. And Abby, can I ask you the same question as well?
Yes, you can. So my advice would be to not stress at the moment. I know at the moment it's so stressful with school. I get it. But if you have a sole focus on something, whether you accidentally fall into it and whatever, I'm not saying not to study, of course, but it's not worth getting stressed over when at the end of the day you will end up somewhere. I'd also say every opportunity to go for it. Like there's so many, when I was looking for a job, there's so many descriptions where I read them and I was like, oh no, they don't want me. Or like, even if it said the age bracket was what, 15 to 17, and I was 17, I thought, no, I'm too old for that. They're only saying 17 because they want the people in between. But actually, yeah, you just have to go for it. The like worst thing they can say is no. And I know it's bad to take, but it's just so much worth going for stuff like that.
Thank you very much, Abby. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give the panel a short break to catch their breath, have a drink. You've given us some great answers to all of those questions. What we're going to do now is tell you a little bit more about Girls Get Set and how it started. So the Girls Get Set scheme started with Kim and Sophie, neither of who both can be here today, but I did speak to Kim last week, and as the founder of Girls Get Set, she was very excited about having loads of alumni now joining the program. So we're going to show you a short clip from when I spoke to her, where she talks about why she decided to set up the program. Hi everyone, I'm here today with Kim. Kim here is one of my Girls Get Set heroes. She actually started up the Girls Get Set scheme 10 years ago. So Kim, why was it that you set up Girls Get Set?
I mean, hero is a strong word, right? But you know, thank you. So Sophie and I set up Girls Get Set. We kind of saw the gender imbalance that kind of exists in STEM coming through university, and then being 2 of 80 GE graduates on the intake in 2008, we realised that there was a problem. We were both passionate about our career choice, but we couldn't understand why young people just weren't making the same choices that we were. Mm-hmm. So we were really active STEM ambassadors, and we did lots of mixed STEM events. And we kind of wondered what it would be like if we took the boys out, and we did a trial. So we had this first girls only event, and I'll never forget watching this group of 5 girls that sat around a table. They were building something that I don't remember what they were building, but previously, like in the mixed events, the girls had really sat back, whereas now with only girls, they got all stuck in. They lost all their inhibitions. They were arguing over what component went where within the structure. They were arguing what's the best way to build it. And the moment for me was at the end, they all clapped. Every single one of them clapped and cheered when they managed to kind of achieve it. And I think then we realised that we needed to harness this energy and build a sustainable scheme around it.
What do you think exactly has changed? What difference is it that you've made?
I think so. STEM's more accessible than it ever has been for girls, and that's down to organisations like GE that are kind of challenging these stereotypical gender roles that exist within society. I think most people have acknowledged that we're not there yet. You know, we've got a way to go. But this change is so massive, and it takes time, and it takes a generation. So we need the young girls now that have these less rigid perceptions of what career they can and can't go into. We need them to become parents to the next generation, so it becomes a little bit more normal for them, and so on and so on and so on. I also think that there's another kind of piece around, you know, you've got to be a star pupil to go into STEM, and I hate that. And girls often come up to me and say, I'm not clever enough to be an engineer, when I ask them why they don't want to do it. And I wasn't a star pupil at maths. You know, I had to work hard at it to understand maths. But the beauty of maths is that you kind of work a process and you get to the answer, but the process largely stays the same. You just kind of got to work through it and get to that answer. And that's where maths is truly universal. And I try and kind of talk to some of the girls around that, you know, it may not come to you like really easy, but if you work at it and you understand it, you can build on it. And that's where, for me, I don't think you need to be a star pupil. You need to be good at maths and science, obviously. But I don't think you need to be kind of exceptional. You can do it if you work at it as well. And Girls Get Set definitely helps with a bit of that as well, making it more accessible to young girls. Definitely.
Now I'm one of 6 Girls Get Set alumni that have started at GE Aviation at our Cheltenham site. So your Girls Get Set scheme is definitely working.
And that's the most important thing that's come out of this, right? You know, the 6 of you that have joined us, it's just absolutely incredible that A, you've picked STEM career, B, you've picked GE, and C, I'm going to guess most of you are involved in Girls Get Set and reaching out to the younger generation as well. Like, what a legacy to leave there. So, I mean, thank you to you, right, for, you know, joining us. But that's exactly what Sophie and I wanted or dreamt that we could do with something like Girls Get Set.
So that was a quick message from Kim, one of the co-founders of the Girls Get Set scheme. So I'd like to ask the panel one other question before we check to see if we have any more questions from the audience. And that question is, what is your favourite memory of taking part in the Girls Get Set programme? So Jess, let's start with you.
I think my absolute favourite memory is the very first event that I attended. When I came in, sat down, all the other students were coming in, and as the day went along, I got to see how so many people in my local area, so many of the girls had so similar interests as me. I was in a team of just 2. There was only one girl in my whole year group that liked STEM. So it was just the 2 of us, and it seemed like we were kind of outnumbered by everyone else. But going to Girls Get Set and seeing that, you know, there were so many people that had the same interests, and we could talk about it and we could get involved with it. It was just the most amazing experience, really.
Thanks, Jess. Abby?
Yeah, so my favourite memory was when Girls Get Set actually came to my school for this event. We were coding lights for these little foam planes that we had created, and coding had kind of been like my secret, like, happy place when I was doing it. And I was in class, I was the only girl in the computer science class, and I always took a back seat because I was too shy to be like, oh, I know how to do that. And I remember sat there coding these lights, just happily doing it while everyone behind me was like struggling with it. And I managed to do it so quickly, and I was so proud of myself. So yeah, that was my favourite part.
Thanks, Abby. Fleur?
So I guess for me, there's kind of a couple. Sadly, when I took part in Girls Get Set, I wasn't able to make any of the actual on-site days, especially finals day, because sadly I was away doing a Head Start course up at Liverpool University. But I think in general, I really enjoyed the group I worked with and building our Robot Olympics like contender. But I think one of the memories that sticks out most for me with Girls Get Set is the careers day that I then went to when I was in year 13, and you could see all an abundance of A-level students, both male and female, kind of go in there to be able to highlight females in engineering. Like, it wasn't just for women that day, it was to kind of highlight that there is such a lower number of female engineers and kind of why this might be the case, and being able to understand it.
Thanks, Fleur. Alice?
My best memory from Girls Get Set was we got to do lots of different things. Margaret and I got to do quite a lot of challenges when we were at school. But we went to GE one day and I went walking around the hall and there was all these different female engineers on the wall, and a bit like a top trump card of what they'd done. And reading about them just sort of it inspired me and reminded me there were so many different things I could do. And just because I'd done maths at A-level didn't mean I had to do a maths degree or be a maths teacher. And that was sort of the direction I was going in until I saw these posters on the wall that made me think, oh, there's actually more that I can do with this maths love of mine, to actually then work it out and go from there and start thinking about engineering.
Thanks, Alice. And Charlotte?
So I think my favourite memory was at the Robot Olympics when we were doing Girls Get Set. It was on the finals day, and I think everyone was having some trouble and everyone's robots had started breaking, unfortunately. And the amount of commitment that everyone else had, they all rushed over and teams were mixing and helping each other to fix these robots. And there was no kind of divide between, oh, they're a different team or a different school, we should let them just kind of deal with their own problems. We all came together, and it was so nice to see other people helping fix these robots that had different issues. And they were like, oh yeah, we encountered this, we'll help fix for this issue. And it was just lovely to see everyone working together. And so I don't really think you see that in school too often, where it's more about your success, where it's more about Girls Get Set success when they were all together, which was really nice to see.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Roz, do we have any more questions from the audience?
We've got a couple more questions to try to answer in the last couple of minutes. The first one is about the aviation industry, and it says, why did some of you choose to work in aviation? And if you were planning to stay in this industry, why?
Charlotte, can I give you this question?
Well, I think I chose aviation because when I went to Girls Get Set, it seemed really cool to work on planes. And this isn't just me saying this, but being able to see how much makes up a plane. Because I think when I went to Girls Get Set, they did an outline of the plane on the floor, and then being able to see all the different components that could go into it, and how small things that you wouldn't think about on a plane are actually a part of a bigger creation or project that you can work on is really, really cool to see. And just being able to see a plane that you've worked on do its first flight for the first test flight for safety of flight was amazing to see. So I work on a project where recently they managed to get their accreditation and did test flight in America, and being able to watch a live stream as it took off and successfully fly and landed was amazing to watch. I'm definitely going to stay in aviation because it was everyone cheering at the same time. It was really fun to see.
Great. And Roz, the other question.
Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years from now, and why?
Great question. Alice, can I go to you first?
I'm hoping in 3 to 5 years' time, I would like to be a chartered engineer by then. Should take about that long. And working in design, if I'm in aviation, I'll be happy. But equally, if I'm in renewables or trains, cars, whatever I'm doing, just learning, that's where I'd like to be in 5 years' time, still sort of building on what I've been taught and where it might go in future.
Thanks, Alice. And Fleur?
In 5 years' time, I guess hopefully similar to Alice, being a chartered engineer. I'm working towards my iEng at the moment, so slowly getting there. I don't know whether I'll still be at GE. I'd like to be. It all depends on whether there's a job at the end of the apprenticeship for me or not. But I'd definitely still be in engineering of some sort. I'm thinking more along the lines of the hardware electronics route, but you never know, my next rotation might completely change me and I'll be doing something completely different. So I'm still figuring things out, what I like. And I think as long as I'm doing something that I enjoy in 5 years' time, that's the main thing.
Thank you very much, Fleur. Now, we have about a minute left, so I'd like to say a huge thanks to everyone that has been involved with our panel today, as well as all the moderators that have been on to help. And I'd like to pass over to Mara-Lisa to say a few final words.
Thank you so much, Margaret. So I would just like to close off by saying a massive thank you to Margaret, to Roz keeping the questions, and of course to our 5 brilliant panelists for sharing their journeys, their stories, and their great insights into their careers so far. And as well, big thank you to everyone who joined this session and for all the great questions that you asked our panel. If you did enjoy listening to these stories, please head over to our website here up on the screen, where there are plenty more stories from other Girls Get Set alumni. And also just wanted to let you know that we have our final Girls Get Set birthday event tomorrow at the same time, 11:30. It's a workshop about diversity, inclusion, and unconscious bias, and you can sign up through our website. So we'd love to see you back here tomorrow. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.